Ethan Cole sat in the back of his black town car, staring out the window at the Chicago skyline as dusk settled over the city. The streets were alive with headlights and honking cabs, but inside the car it was quiet. Too quiet. He adjusted his cufflinks, then ran a hand over his freshly trimmed beard. He hadn't been on a real date in over 3 years. Not since the divorce. Not since his daughter stopped answering his calls. His phone buzzed. A text from his sister. She's gorgeous, smart, and actually funny. Don't mess this up. Her name's Sophia. She's a model, but like the kind who reads philosophy and volunteers at animal shelters. You'll love her. Ethan sighed. He didn't believe in the kind who anymore. Every woman he'd met through apps or setups lately felt like a performance. Carefully filtered, perfectly posed, always saying what they thought he wanted to hear. Still, he'd agreed to this, mostly because his sister had worn him down with guilt. You're 42, you live in a penthouse with a view no one shares, and your idea of companionship is arguing with your Alexa. Just try. The car pulled up to Le Jardin, one of those quiet, candle-lit places where the wine list cost more than most people's rent. Ethan stepped out, straightened his navy suit, and walked in like he owned the place, which, in a way, he did. His tech company had made him rich enough to walk into any room without flinching. But tonight, his stomach was tight. He spotted the hostess, who smiled and led him to a corner table near the window. Your date hasn't arrived yet, she said gently. But she called ahead, said she might be a few minutes late. Ethan nodded, ordered a whiskey neat, and tried not to check his watch every 30 seconds. 10 minutes passed. Then 15. He started imagining worst-case scenarios. Another ghosting. Another something came up. Another night eating alone while pretending he preferred it that way. Then the door opened. A woman hurried in, slightly out of breath, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, a light jacket over a simple blouse that had seen better days. She scanned the room nervously, clutching a worn canvas tote bag like a shield. When her eyes landed on him, she froze, then walked over with hesitant steps. Are you Ethan? She asked, voice soft but clear. He stood, surprised. This wasn't the sleek, high-cheekboned model from his sister's description. This woman looked real tired, maybe, but real. Yeah, and you're Sophia? She winced slightly. Actually, no. I'm Maya. Sophia's my friend. She was supposed to be here, but her flight got delayed. She's flying in from Miami for a shoot, and she panicked. She begged me to come so you wouldn't think she stood you up. I didn't want to, but... She glanced around, embarrassed. Honestly? The hostess told her they give free meals to people who show up for no-show dates, and I could really use a good meal. Ethan blinked. He wasn't sure whether to be annoyed or amused. So you're here? For the free food? Maya's cheeks flushed, but she held his gaze. I'm here because my friend asked me to be decent. And yeah, maybe also because my fridge is basically empty and my kid's been asking for mac and cheese all week. She paused, then added, but I can leave if this is weird. I totally get it. Something about her honesty cut through his irritation. Most people would have lied, played along, tried to charm their way into staying, but she'd just told him the truth, awkward, unpolished, and human. No, he said, surprising himself. Stay, please. She sat still tense, like she expected him to change his mind any second. He signaled the waiter and ordered another drink, this time a glass of red wine. What kind do you like? He asked. I don't really know wine, she admitted. I usually drink coffee. Or tap water. He smiled, a real one, not the practiced one he used in boardrooms. Then we'll go with the house red. It's safe. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the restaurant filling the space. Then Maya exhaled, shoulders relaxing just a little. I should probably explain more. Sophia and I went to community college together. She's sweet but kind of flaky. She thought this would be funny. Send my responsible friend in my place. But I feel terrible. You probably had your whole night planned. Ethan leaned back. My whole night was show up, be polite, leave by 10. Not exactly a grand plan. She laughed. A warm, unguarded sound that made him feel lighter than he had in months. Okay, fair. But still, I don't want you thinking I'm some weirdo who crashes blind dates. You're not, he said. You're just unexpected, they ordered. She chose the cheapest pasta on the menu. He ordered the same just so she wouldn't feel singled out. As they ate, they talked. Not about careers or connections, but about little things. She told him about her 6-year-old son, Leo. who loved dinosaurs and cried when his goldfish died last month. He told her about his daughter who used to draw him pictures every Sunday but hadn't sent one in over a year. "You miss her a lot," Maya said, not as a question but as something she understood. "Every day," he admitted, "but I don't know how to fix it. I keep trying to buy my way back in, gifts, trips, fancy dinners, and it just pushes her further away." Maya nodded slowly. "Kids don't want stuff. They want you. The real you, not the version that shows up with a credit card." He looked at her, really looked. There was no judgment in her eyes, just quiet knowing. Like she'd been on the other side of that pain. They talked about work, too. He told her he ran a company that built software for hospitals. She told him she worked at a daycare during the day and waited tables at a diner 3 nights a week. "It's not glamorous," she said with a small shrug, "but it keeps the lights on." "It's honest," he said. "That's more than most people can say." She smiled again, and this time it reached her eyes. "You're not what I expected either. What did you expect? A stiff guy in a suit who talks about stock options and private jets." He laughed. "I own a private jet." She raised an eyebrow. "And yet here you are eating spaghetti with a stranger who showed up for free bread." "Best bread I've had all week," he said, and meant it. By the time dessert came, just coffee for her, espresso for him, the tension was gone. They weren't pretending. They weren't performing. They were just two people, tired in different ways, sharing a table in a quiet corner of a too bright world. When the check came, Ethan reached for it without thinking. Maya's hand shot out gently. "Let me pay for my half." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to," she said firmly but kindly. "But I want to. I'm not charity. I'm just a mom who got roped into a weird situation." He respected that. So they split it, her paying with crumpled bills from her wallet, him with a black card he didn't even look at. Outside, the night air was cool. She pulled her jacket tighter. "Thanks for not being mad," she said. "Thanks for showing up," he replied. They stood there for a beat, neither sure what came next. No kiss, no phone number exchange, just a quiet understanding that something unusual had happened. "I should get home," she said. "Leo's with my neighbor and she's got work early." "Of course," he said. "Take care of yourself. You too." She turned to leave, then paused. "Hey, if your sister asks, tell her Sophia had a great time," he chuckled. "Will do." She walked off down the street, her steps quick but steady, disappearing into the glow of city lights. Ethan stood there longer than he needed to, watching the spot where she'd vanished. Back in his car, his driver asked, "Head home, sir?" "Yeah," Ethan said. But as they pulled away, he didn't reach for his phone or his laptop. He just stared out the window, thinking about a woman who'd shown up not for fame, not for fortune, but because her friend asked, and because her kid liked mac and cheese. For the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone in his loneliness. And that strangely made all the difference. 3 days passed, and Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her. It wasn't that she was beautiful in the way people usually meant, though she had kind eyes and a smile that didn't try too hard. It was the way she spoke, like every word mattered. Like she wasn't afraid to say she was tired, or that her fridge was empty, or that she missed her kid while she was out. Most people he met spent half their time pretending they had it all together. She didn't pretend at all. He told himself it was just curiosity, that he'd been stuck in the same polished, predictable world for so long, that even a small crack in it felt exciting. But deep down he knew it was more than that. She'd looked at him like he was just a person, not a CEO, not a bank account, not a problem to solve. On the 4th morning, during a strategy meeting about cloud infrastructure, his mind drifted again. Someone was talking about server uptime, but all he could picture was her hands, slightly rough, nails unpolished, holding that chipped coffee cup like it was enough. After the meeting, instead of heading back to his office, he walked, not with a plan, just walked. His driver waited outside, confused, but Ethan waved him off. "I'll call you later." He ended up near the diner she'd mentioned, the one with the red awning and the flickering neon sign that read Maggie's. He hadn't even realized he remembered the name until he saw it. He stood across the street for a full minute, feeling ridiculous. What was he doing? Showing up like some lovesick teenager? He was 42. He ran a company with 300 employees. He didn't just drop by diners unannounced. But then the door opened and there she was. tying an apron around her waist, hair pulled back, laughing at something the cook said through the kitchen window. She looked tired but not broken, just going. He took a breath and crossed the street. The bell above the door jingled. A few early lunch customers glanced up, then went back to their plates. She turned from the coffee machine and froze when she saw him. "Ethan?" Her voice was surprised, not unwelcoming. "Hey," he said, shoving, his hands in his pockets like he was suddenly 16 again. "I was in the neighborhood." She raised an eyebrow. "You live on the 40th floor of a building that costs more than this whole block. You're not in the neighborhood." He smiled. "Okay, fair. I came to see if you were real." She laughed, but it was softer this time. "I'm real, and slightly over-caffeinated. Can I get coffee, just coffee?" "Sure," she said, grabbing a clean mug. "Black?" "Yeah. No sugar." She poured it, slid it across the counter. He sat on a worn vinyl stool. The place smelled like bacon, old wood, and something comforting, like home, if home had sticky floors and mismatched salt shakers. For a while, they didn't talk. She wiped down the counter, refilled ketchup bottles, checked on a couple's order. He watched her move, efficient, calm, like she'd done this 1,000 times and still hadn't lost the rhythm. Finally, she leaned against the counter across from him. "So, why are you really here?" "I couldn't stop thinking about what you said," he admitted. "About kids not wanting stuff. They want you." She nodded slowly. "Yeah, that's true. My daughter. She used to leave drawings on my desk. Little stick figures labeled Dad and me at the park. Now she texts me only when she needs money for school trips, and I keep sending it like that'll fix things." Maya didn't offer empty comfort. She just said, "You can't buy back time." "No," he said quietly. "I can't." She studied him for a long moment. "You know, most guys in your position would have sent flowers or a check after that date, or just ghosted. But you came here. That says something." "What does it say?" "That you're trying. Even if you don't know how." They talked more after that. Not about grand plans or deep confessions, but about ordinary things. She told him Leo had lost his first tooth last week and cried because he thought it meant he was turning into a monster. He told her he'd never learned to cook because his ex-wife always handled it, and now he lived on takeout and protein shakes. "You should learn," she said, "even just scrambled eggs. It's not about being fancy. It's about showing up." He liked that. Showing up. Not with a grand gesture, but with eggs, with presence. Over the next week he came back. Not every day, just enough to feel normal, not obsessive. He'd sit at the same stool, order coffee, sometimes a slice of pie. They'd talk between her taking orders or refilling syrup bottles. He never tipped too much, just enough. She never made a fuss. One rainy Tuesday, the diner was nearly empty. She slid into the booth across from him with her own coffee. "Slow day," she said. "Mind if I take 5? "Please," he said. She sighed, rubbing her temples. Leo's school called again. He's having trouble focusing. They think he might need extra help, but the evaluation costs $200 I don't have. Ethan didn't offer to pay. He'd learned that lesson. Instead, he asked, "What does the school say about options?" She looked at him surprised. "You actually care?" "I do." She relaxed a little. "They mentioned a city program, but the wait list is 6 months. By then, he might fall too far behind." He thought for a moment. "I know someone at the children's hospital, through work. They run a free developmental screening clinic. No wait list. I could make a call." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Is this a backdoor way of giving me money?" "No," he said firmly. "It's a backdoor way of using a connection I have to help someone who needs it. You don't have to take it. But it's there." She was quiet for a long time. Then, "Okay. Thank you. But no strings." "No strings," he agreed. The next day, he made the call. 2 days after that, Maya texted him, just a simple message. "Appointment set for Thursday. Thanks." He didn't reply right away. He just read it 3 times, smiling like an idiot. Their friendship, if that's what it was, grew in these small exchanges. He started noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. How hard single parents worked, how many people were just one missed paycheck from disaster, how lonely success could feel when no one knew the real you. One evening after a long board meeting, he found himself driving past Leo's school. He didn't stop, but he slowed down, imagining a small boy inside, drawing dinosaurs, waiting for his mom to pick him up. He realized something then. He didn't want to fix her life. He just wanted to be part of it, even in a small way. Back at the diner a few days later, she asked, "Why do you keep coming here?" He stirred his coffee, thinking, "Because when I'm here, I don't have to be anyone but myself. And you don't treat me like I'm supposed to be anything else." She looked down, then met his eyes. "I like that you're trying to be better. Not perfect, just better." They sat in comfortable silence as rain tapped against the window. Outside, the world rushed by, cars, people, noise. But inside, for a little while, it was quiet. Human. And that was enough. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city damp and glistening under a pale morning sun. Ethan stood in his kitchen, staring at a carton of eggs like they held the secrets of the universe. He cracked one into a bowl, too hard. Shell fragments floated in the yolk. He sighed, fished them out with a spoon, and tried again. This time it worked. He'd been practicing. Scrambled eggs, toast, even a slightly lopsided pancake shaped like a lopsided heart. It wasn't much, but it was something. He'd texted his daughter the night before. "Made breakfast today. Thought of you." No reply yet. But he wasn't giving up. Later that week, he called Maya. Not to the diner this time, but just to talk. "What if I took you and Leo to the park this weekend?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "There's that big one by the lake with the playground and the ducks." There was a pause. "You want to hang out with my 6-year-old? "Yeah," he said. "If that's okay." Another pause. Then, softly, "Leo would love that." Saturday morning arrived cool and clear. Ethan showed up at her apartment building in a clean but simple outfit. Jeans, a soft sweater, no suit, no watch worth more than a car. He brought a paper bag with juice boxes, granola bars, and 2 sandwiches he'd made himself. One with peanut butter, one with turkey, just in case. Maya opened the door holding Leo's hand. The boy looked up at Ethan with wide, curious eyes, clutching a stuffed T-Rex under one arm. "This is Leo," she said. "Hey, Leo," Ethan said, crouching slightly. "I heard you're a dinosaur expert." Leo nodded seriously. "Tyrannosaurus Rex is the king." "I agree," Ethan said. "Want to go find some duck fossils by the lake?" That broke the ice. Leo grinned and tugged his mom's hand. "Can we go, Mama?" They walked to the park together. No car, no driver, just 3 people on a sidewalk. Leo ran ahead, then circled back, full of energy. Maya walked beside Ethan, hands in her pockets, relaxed in a way he hadn't seen before. At the park, they found an empty patch of grass near the playground. Ethan spread out a blanket he'd brought, navy blue, slightly wrinkled, and they sat. Leo immediately ran to the swings, then came back breathless. "Push me," Ethan did. He pushed gently at first, then higher when Leo laughed and shouted, "Faster!" For a moment, Ethan forgot about quarterly reports, investor calls, the empty penthouse waiting for him. He was just a man pushing a kid on a swing, smiling because someone else was happy. Later, they built a sandcastle near the edge of the lake. It leaned to one side, half collapsed, with a stick flag made from a fallen twig. Leo declared it 40. Dino and Ethan played along, pretending to guard it from invisible lava monsters. Maya watched them from the blanket, sipping juice, her expression soft. When Ethan sat back down, wiping sand off his hands, she said, "You're good with him." "I've never really been around kids much," he admitted. "But it feels right." She nodded. He hasn't smiled this much in weeks. They stayed until the sun began to dip, painting the sky orange and pink. On the walk back, Leo held Ethan's hand without being asked. Halfway home, the boy looked up and said, "Can you come again?" Ethan's chest tightened. "I'd like that." That night, back in his quiet apartment, he didn't feel lonely. He felt useful, seen, not for his title or his bank account, but for showing up, for trying. But life doesn't stay quiet for long. 2 days later, Maya called. Her voice was tight, strained. "My landlord just gave me an ultimatum. I missed last month's rent. Leo's school thing took more than I thought, and now he says if I don't pay the full amount by Friday, I'm out." Ethan's stomach dropped. "How much do you need?" "I don't want your money," she said quickly. "I mean it. I'll figure it out. I always do." "But you shouldn't have to," he said. "Let me help. A loan, no interest. Pay me back whenever." "No," she said firmly. "It changes things. And I like whatever this is. I don't want it to become something messy." He respected that. So instead, he called in a favor. A friend owned a small property management company. He asked if there was any temporary housing, anything, for a single mom in a tight spot. Within hours, he got a lead. A furnished studio above a bookstore, available for half the usual rent, month to month. The owner was retiring and just wanted someone reliable. He told Maya. She listened, silent. Then, "You didn't pay them to do this, did you?" "No," he said. "I just asked. That's all." She exhaled. "Okay, I'll look at it." She took the place, moved in that weekend with 2 suitcases and a box of books. Leo was excited about the secret hideout above the bookstore. Ethan helped carry boxes, fixed a loose cabinet hinge, and left before it felt like he was overstepping. For a few days, things felt like they were settling into something real, something slow and steady. Then came the comment, he was at a charity gala, another obligation he couldn't skip. When he ran into a colleague from another firm, the man clapped him on the back, grinning. "Heard you've got a new pet project. Cute little single mom, right? Playing hero?" Ethan froze. "What did you say?" "Oh, come on," the man laughed. "Everyone's talking. CEO saves the damsel in distress. Sweet story. Just don't forget she's not your daughter's replacement." The words hit like a punch. Ethan walked away without another word, but the damage was done. 2 days later, he saw Maya at the park again. She'd texted that Leo wanted to show him a new rock collection. But when he arrived, she was distant, quiet. When Leo ran off to feed the ducks, she turned to him. "I heard what people are saying," she said, voice low, "that I'm your charity case, that you're using me to feel better about yourself." "I would never." "But it doesn't matter what you meant," she cut in gently. "It matters how it looks, and to me, it feels like I'm slipping into a role I didn't sign up for. The grateful poor girl you rescued," he wanted to argue, to explain. But he saw the truth in her eyes. He'd been so focused on helping that he hadn't asked how it made her feel. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't see it that way." "Maybe that's the problem," she said. "You only see what you want to see." She took Leo's hand and left before he could respond. That night, Ethan sat alone in his living room, the city lights blinking below. He replayed every conversation, every gesture. Had he really been helping or just easing his own guilt? Was he trying to connect or just fill a hole in his own life? He thought about his daughter, about how he kept sending gifts instead of showing up. Was he doing the same thing with Maya, offering solutions instead of listening? The next morning, he didn't call. He didn't show up at the bookstore. He gave her space, real space, not just silence with an agenda. At work, his team noticed the change. He canceled 2 unnecessary meetings, asked how people were doing, and actually waited for the answer. He started leaving the office by 6, not midnight. One evening, he drove past the bookstore. The light was on in the upstairs window. He didn't stop. He just watched for a moment, then drove on. He wasn't trying to win her back. He was trying to become someone worth staying for, and that, he realized, would take more than money. It would take humility, patience, time. Most of all, it would take seeing her, not as someone to fix, but as someone whole, already enough, just as she was. Weeks passed. The city moved on, seasons shifting, leaves turning gold, then falling. Ethan stopped counting the days. He didn't call, didn't text, didn't drive by the bookstore. He gave her the space she asked for even when it ached. Instead, he turned inward. He started small. One evening, he sat down and wrote his daughter a letter. Not an email, not a text, but real paper in his own handwriting. He didn't ask for anything, didn't promise gifts or trips. He just told her he missed her laugh, that he remembered how she used to hum when she colored, and that he was sorry he'd been so busy being successful that he forgot how to be her dad. He mailed it and didn't expect a reply. But 3 days later, a postcard arrived, a drawing of a cat wearing sunglasses with "Hi" scribbled in the corner. It wasn't much, but it was a start. At work, he stopped pretending everything was fine. In a team meeting, someone asked how he was doing. Instead of his usual "great, thanks," he said, "Honestly, I've been thinking a lot about what really matters, and I think we've been missing it." He announced a new company policy, paid emergency leave for caregivers, flexible hours for parents, and a partnership with a local nonprofit to offer free tutoring for employees' kids. Some board members grumbled about costs, but he held firm. "People aren't expenses," he said. "They're the reason we're here." He also started volunteering, not at galas where his name got printed in programs, but at a community center on the south side. He didn't bring cameras or assistants, just showed up every Thursday evening to help kids with homework. Most didn't know who he was, and he liked it that way. He sat with a quiet boy struggling with fractions, patiently drawing pie charts on scrap paper until the light clicked in the kid's eyes. "Oh," the boy said, grinning. "So it's like sharing pizza." Ethan laughed. Exactly like that. One rainy Thursday, he arrived early to set up tables. The center was nearly empty, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the smell of old books and floor cleaner. He was stacking chairs when the door opened. He didn't see her at first, just heard the soft click of the latch. Then he turned. Maya stood in the doorway holding an umbrella that dripped onto the mat. She looked surprised to see him, but not angry. Just still. "Hey," he said, voice quieter than he meant it to be. "Hi," she replied. She stepped inside, shaking the rain off her coat. "I didn't know you volunteered here." "I started a few weeks ago," he said. "Leo's school mentioned this place. Said they have a great after-school program." She nodded slowly. "I brought him today. He's in the art room." She paused, then added, "I saw you through the window. You were helping that little boy with math." "He gets it now," Ethan said. "Took 3 tries, but he got it." She looked at him, really looked, and something in her expression softened. "You're different." "Trying to be," he said. They stood in silence for a moment, the rain tapping against the windows. Then she walked closer, stopping a few feet away. "I've been thinking a lot too. About what I said. About us. I deserved it," he said. "I was helping the way I thought was right, not the way you needed." She nodded. "And I shut you out because I was scared. Scared that if I let you in, I'd lose myself. Or that Leo would get attached and then you'd disappear like everyone else." "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "Not as a promise, but as a fact." "But you could," she said gently. "Life changes. People change. I need to know this isn't about fixing me or filling a hole in your life." "It's not," he said. "It's about walking beside you. Not ahead, not behind, just beside." She studied his face, searching for the truth, and maybe she found it because her shoulders relaxed just a little. They talked then, not about the past, not about apologies, but about now. She told him Leo had started reading chapter books. He told her he'd cooked pasta from scratch and burned the garlic bread. She laughed, and it didn't feel forced. "I miss this," she admitted quietly. "Me too." They didn't hug, didn't hold hands. But when she turned to leave, she paused at the door. "Would you want to have coffee sometime?" "Just coffee." "No expectations," he smiled. "I'd like that." A week later, they met at a small cafe, nowhere fancy, just a corner spot with mismatched chairs and strong coffee. They talked for hours, about parenting, about dreams they'd put on hold, about how hard it is to trust when you've been let down too many times. He told her he'd applied to be a mentor in a program for kids with learning differences, inspired by Leo's journey. She told him she'd signed up for night classes in early childhood education, something she'd wanted to do for years but never had the time or courage. "I'm scared I'll fail," she admitted. "You won't," he said. "But even if you do once, you'll try again." That's what matters. She looked at him, eyes glistening. You really see me, don't you? I'm trying to, he said. Every day. There were no grand declarations that day. No dramatic confessions. Just two people sitting across a small table, choosing to be honest even when it was hard. Later, as they walked out into the cool evening air, she stopped under a street lamp. I don't know where this is going, she said. But I want to find out slowly. Slow is good, he said. Slow is real. And for the first time in a long time, they both believed it. The winter had softened into early spring, and the city smelled like wet pavement and blooming trees. Ethan stood in Maya's tiny kitchen, stirring a pot of pasta while Leo sat at the small table, carefully coloring a picture of a spaceship with 3 suns and a dog wearing a helmet. You're doing it wrong, Leo announced without looking up. Ethan glanced over. The pasta? No, the sauce. You gotta add the garlic after the oil gets hot, not before. Mama says it burns. Ah, Ethan said, nodding seriously. Important detail. He'd been coming over every Sunday for the past 2 months, just for dinner, just as himself. No grand plans, no hidden agendas. Sometimes they talked for hours. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence while Leo built Lego towers or read aloud from his new books. It wasn't romance in the movies, it was laundry piles, burnt toast, and helping with homework. And somehow it felt more real than anything he'd ever known. Maya walked in, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She'd just come back from her evening class. Her eyes were tired, but she smiled when she saw him at the stove. You didn't have to cook. I wanted to, he said. Besides, I finally got the garlic thing right. She leaned against the counter, watching him. You've changed, you know. Good change, he asked, turning to her. The best kind, she said softly. They'd built something quiet and steady, not with promises, but with presence. He'd helped her enroll in her early childhood education program, not by paying her tuition, but by working with his company to create a scholarship fund for single parents in the community. She'd insisted on applying like everyone else. She got in on her own merit. He'd been so proud he nearly cried. In return, she'd taught him how to be still, how to listen without fixing, how to show up even when it was messy. Leo hopped off his chair and tugged Ethan's sleeve. Look, this is you in the spaceship. Ethan bent down. The drawing showed a tall figure with messy hair and a big smile floating among stars. That's me? Yeah, Leo said. You're the captain. 'Cause you always come back. Ethan's throat tightened. He ruffled the boy's hair. Best job I've ever had. Dinner was simple. Pasta, salad, garlic bread that was only slightly charred. They ate at the small table, laughing when Leo tried to balance a noodle on his nose. Afterward, Ethan washed the dishes while Maya helped Leo get ready for bed. He heard her reading a story in the next room, her voice low and warm, and for a moment, he just stood there listening, feeling something settle deep inside him. Later, when Leo was asleep and the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator, they sat on the floor in the living room with mugs of tea. Rain tapped gently against the window. I got a call from my daughter today, Ethan said, staring into his mug. She asked if I'd come to her school play next month. Maya turned to him, eyes soft. And? I said yes, and I'm not bringing flowers or fancy seats. Just me, in the back row. That's perfect, she said. They sat in silence for a while, the kind that didn't need filling. Outside, the city moved on, cars passing, distant sirens, the rhythm of life continuing. But here, in this small apartment with mismatched furniture and secondhand curtains, there was peace. You know, Maya said after a while. I used to think happy endings meant everything got fixed, like one big moment that made all the pain worth it. And now, he asked, now I think happy endings are just choosing each other again and again, even on hard days, even when you're tired, even when you burn the garlic bread. He laughed softly. I'll work on that. She reached over and took his hand, not dramatically, just naturally, like it belonged there. You already are. There were no rings, no declarations, no sudden wealth or fairy tale twists. Just two people who'd been broken in different ways, learning how to be whole together. Not by changing each other, but by accepting who they really were. The next week, Ethan didn't cancel his board meeting when his phone buzzed with a reminder. But when it ended early, he left the office at 5, picked up groceries, and walked to the bookstore apartment. Leo greeted him at the door with a new dinosaur fact. Maya was grading papers at the kitchen table, her hair loose, barefoot in old socks. He put the groceries away, made tea, and sat beside her. No words needed. Later that night, as he walked back to his car, he looked up at the building. A light was on in the upstairs window. Their window, in a way. Not his penthouse with the view no one shared, but this. A warm light. A boy's laughter drifting down. A woman who saw him clearly and stayed anyway. He didn't feel like a CEO in that moment. He felt like a man who'd finally come home. Not to a place, but to people. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.